All that we are is the result of what we have thought. It is founded on our thoughts and made up of our thoughts. If a man speaks or acts with an evil thought, suffering follows him as the wheel follows the hoof of the beast that draws the wagon. If a man speaks or acts with a good thought, happiness follows him like a shadow that never leaves. Holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. Delusion arises from anger. The mind is bewildered by delusion. Reasoning is destroyed when the mind is bewildered. One falls down when reasoning is destroyed. Endurance is one of the most difficult disciplines, but it is to the one who endures that the final victory comes. Let us rise up and be thankful, for if we didn't learn a lot, at least we learned a little, and if we didn't learn a little, at least we didn't get sick, and if we got sick, at least we didn't die. So let us be thankful. Even as a solid rock isn't shaken by the wind, so are the wise unshaken by praise or blame. Thousands of candles can be lit from a single candle, and the life of the candle will not be shortened. Happiness never decreases by being shared. We are shaped by our thoughts. We become what we think. When the mind is pure, joy follows like a shadow that never leaves. Every morning we are born again. What we do today is what matters most. Do not look for sanctuary in anyone except yourself. I'll tell you what the hermits realize. If you go off into a far, far forest and get very quiet, you'll come to understand that you're connected with everything. If then my awareness of the past and future makes me less aware of the present, I must begin to wonder whether I am actually living in the real world. Meditation is the discovery that the point of life is always arrived at in the immediate moment. The only Zen you'll find on the mountaintop is the Zen you bring up there with you. If you say that getting the money is the most important thing, you'll spend your life completely wasting your time. You'll be doing things you don't like doing in order to go on living. That is to go on doing things you don't like doing, which is stupid. When we attempt to exercise power or control over someone else, we cannot avoid giving that person the very same power or control over us. Things are as they are. Looking out into the universe at night, we make no comparisons between right and wrong stars, nor between well and badly arranged constellations. If you think that you are only inside your skin, you define yourself as one very complicated little curlicue way out on the edge of that explosion, way out in space and way out in time. Billions of years ago you were a big bang, but now you're a complicated human being, and then we cut ourselves off and don't feel that we're still the big bang, but you are. Depending on how you define yourself, you actually are. If this is the way things started, if there was a big bang in the beginning, you're not something that's a result of the big bang. You're not something that is a sort of puppet on the end of the process. In this world, 3 gates led to hell. The gates of passion, anger, and greed. Released from these 3 qualities, one can succeed in attaining salvation and reaching the highest goal. You are what you believe in. You become that which you believe you can become. Man is made by his belief. As he believes, so he is. Seek refuge in the attitude of detachment, and you will amass the wealth of spiritual awareness. The one who is motivated only by desire for the fruits of their action and anxious about the results is miserable indeed. It is better to strive in one's own dharma than to succeed in the dharma of another. Nothing is ever lost in following one's own dharma, but competition in another's dharma breeds fear and insecurity. For him who has no concentration meditation, there is no tranquility. Death is a shore for that which is born, as birth is for that which is dead. Therefore grieve not for what is inevitable. It is both near and far, both within and without every creature. It moves and is unmoving. In its subtlety it is beyond comprehension. It is invisible yet appears divided, and separate creatures know it to be the creator, the preserver, and the destroyer. Dwelling in every heart it is beyond darkness. It is called the light of the lights, the object and goal of knowledge, and knowledge itself. It's like you took a bottle of ink and threw it to the wall. Smash, and all that ink spread, and in the middle it is dense, isn't it? And as it gets out to the edge, the little droplets get finer and finer and make more complicated patterns. See? So in the same way, there was a big bang at the beginning of things, and it spread, and you and I sitting here in this room as complicated human beings are way out on the fringe of that bang. We are the complicated little patterns at the end of it. Very interesting, but so we define ourselves as being only that. Muddy water is best cleared by leaving it alone. Every intelligent individual wants to know what makes him tick, and yet is at once fascinated and frustrated by the fact that oneself is the most difficult of all things to know. Problems that remain persistently insoluble should always be suspected as questions asked in the wrong way. One is a great deal less anxious if one feels perfectly free to be anxious, and the same may be said of guilt. One moment can change a day, one day can change a life, and one life can change the world. Be where you are, otherwise you will miss your life. Kindness should be the natural way of life, not the exception. It is better to travel well than to arrive. To live a pure, unselfish life, one must count nothing as one's own in the midst of abundance. Order things merely co-occur, and we give meaning to these co-occurrences based on our belief system. Late Sue's answer: it's all in how you think. When meditation is mastered, the mind is unwavering like the flame of a lamp in a windless place. In the still mind, in the depths of meditation, the self reveals itself, beholding the self by means of the self. An aspirin knows the joy and peace of complete fulfillment, having attained that abiding joy beyond the senses, revealed in the stilled mind. He never swerves from the eternal truth. Philosophy is a man's expression of curiosity about everything and his attempt to make sense of the world, primarily through his intellect. Zen does not confuse spirituality while thinking about God while one is peeling potatoes. Zen spirituality is just to peel the potatoes. If we cling to belief in God, we cannot likewise have faith, since faith is not clinging, but letting go. The root of suffering is attachment. Your work is to discover your world, and then with all your heart give yourself to it. There is no fire like passion. There is no shark like hatred. There is no snare like folly. There is no torrent like greed. Do not dwell in the past. Do not dream of the future. Concentrate the mind on the present moment. Happiness will never come to those who fail to appreciate what they already have. The soul who meditates on the self is content to serve the self and rest. Satisfied within the self, there remains nothing more for him to accomplish. One who performs his duty without attachment, surrendering the results unto the Supreme Lord, is unaffected by sinful action, as the lotus is untouched by water. One who has control over the mind is tranquil in heat and cold. in pain and pleasure, and in honor and dishonor, and is ever steadfast with the Supreme Self. One should strive to employ oneself to uplift oneself. One should never dishonor oneself. The self is one's friend as well as one's enemy. The toe is clear, yet this clarity requires you to sweep away all your clutter. At all times watch out for your own stupidity. Be careful of how your mind jumps around. When nothing occurs to involve your mind, you return to true awareness. When unified mindfulness is purely real, you comprehend the great restoration. The ridiculous ones are those who try to cultivate created as long as body and mind are unstable. It is madness to go into the mountains tomorrow, and plans for tomorrow can have no significance at all unless you are in full contact with the reality of the present, since it is in the present and only in the present that you live. There is no other reality than present reality, so that even if one were to live for endless ages, to live for the future would be to miss the point everlastingly. The meaning of life is just to be alive. It is so plain and so obvious and so simple, and yet everybody rushes around in a great panic as if it were necessary to achieve something beyond themselves. What we have forgotten is the thoughts and words of conventions, and that it is fatal to take conventions too seriously. A convention is a social convenience, as, for example, money, but it is absurd to take money too seriously, to confuse it with real wealth. In somewhat the same way, thoughts, ideas, and words are coins for real things. Other people teach us who we are. Their attitudes to us are the mirror in which we learn to see ourselves. But the mirror is distorted. We are perhaps rather dimly aware of the immense power of our social environment. What you are basically deep down, far in, is simply the fabric and structure of existence itself. I have realized that the past and the future are real illusions, that they exist in the present, which is what there is and all there is. You are a function of what the whole universe is doing, in the same way that a wave is a function of what the whole ocean is doing. Whatever a monk keeps pursuing with his thinking and pondering, that becomes the inclination of his awareness. A man is not called wise because he talks and talks again, but if he is peaceful, loving, and fearless, then he is in truth called wise. You will not be punished for your anger. You will be punished by your anger. Just as the great ocean has one taste, the taste of salt, so also this teaching and discipline has one taste, the taste of liberation. When a man dwells on the pleasure of sense, attraction for them arises in him. From attraction arises desire, the lust of possession, and this leads to passion, to anger. From passion comes confusion of the mind, then loss of remembrance, the forgetting of duty. From this loss comes the ruin of reason, and the ruin of reason leads men to destruction. Look to this day, for it is life, the very life of life. In its brief course lie all the truths and realities of your existence, the bliss of growth, the glory of action, and the splendor of beauty. For yesterday is but a dream, and tomorrow is only a vision, but today well lived makes every yesterday a dream of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well therefore to this day. Such is the salvation of the dawn. When two things occur successively, we call them cause and effect. If we believe one event made the other one happen, if we think one event is the response to the other, we call it a reaction. If we feel that the two incidents are not related, we call it a mere coincidence. If we think someone deserved what happened, we call it a retribution or reward. or depending on whether the event was negative or positive for the recipient. If we cannot find a reason for the two events occurring simultaneously or in close proximity, we call it an accident. Therefore, how we explain coincidences depends on how we see the world. Is everything connected so that events create resonances like ripples across a net? When you get free from certain fixed conceptions of the way the world is, you find it is far more subtle and far more miraculous than you thought it was. You are an aperture through which the universe is looking at and exploring itself. The only way to make sense out of change is to plunge into it, move with it, and join the dance. A scholar tries to learn something every day. A student of Buddhism tries to unlearn something every day. You are still the process. You are the Big Bang, the original force of the universe, coming on as whoever you are. When I meet you, I see not just what you define yourself as Mr. So-and-so, Miss So-and-so, Mrs. So-and-so. I see every one of you as the primordial energy of the universe coming on at me. In this particular way, I know I'm that too, but we've learned to define ourselves as separate from it. Just as a snake sheds its skin, we must shed our past over and over again. What you are is what you have been. What you will be is what you do now. You have the right to work, but for the work's sake only. You have no right to the fruits of work. Desire for the fruits of work must never be your motive in working. Never give way to laziness either. Perform every action with your heart fixed on the Supreme Lord. Renounce attachment to the fruits. Be even-tempered in success and failure, for it is this evenness of temper which is meant by yoga. Work done with anxiety about results is far inferior to the work done without such anxiety. In the calm of self-surrender, seek refuge in the knowledge of Brahma. They who work selfishly for results are miserable.